I think she made a really, really good call calling a timeout when Layla Lacan hacked Caitlin Clark. So, this was what the tactic was early on. And it was full court pressing Caitlin Clark with three different defenders. They put JC Sheldon, Layla Lacan, and Sanaya Rivers all full court pressing JC Sheldon. Sorry, not JC Sheldon, Jesus, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark had the most success on Sheldon. Caitlin Clark had 4 assists in the first quarter on Sheldon. There was nothing really that Sheldon.
The Connecticut Sun implemented comprehensive defensive strategies specifically designed to neutralize Clark's offensive impact during their matchup against Indiana. Their tactical approach involved multiple defensive schemes that evolved throughout the contest, though ultimately proved insufficient during crucial fourth-quarter moments. Connecticut deployed full-court pressure using 3 different defenders to disrupt Clark's rhythm and ball-handling opportunities. The rotation included Sheldon, Lan, and Rivers, each bringing distinct defensive attributes to challenge Clark's various offensive tendencies and preferred attacking angles. Sheldon proved least effective among the defensive rotation, allowing Clark to accumulate 4 assists within the game's opening minutes. Clark's early success against Sheldon demonstrated her ability to exploit certain defensive matchups despite the overall pressure strategy implemented by Connecticut's coaching staff.
That Sheldon could do. Like, she was burning JC. She was getting assists. She had 4 assists, in the first 3.5 minutes on JC Sheldon. And Caitlin only ended the game with 7 assists. And obviously, Caitlin was plus 21. Their goal was to stop Caitlin. They blitzed her off every screen. They guarded her 94 feet. And I got to give credit to especially Layla Lacan. I think Layla Lacan did the best job on her. But they just hacked her. They played her full.
Clark finished the contest with 7 total assists and a plus 21 rating, indicating her overall positive impact despite the focused defensive attention. The statistical output suggests that while Connecticut's strategy created some difficulties, it failed to completely eliminate her effectiveness during key possessions. Connecticut's defensive approach included blitzing screens, extending pressure to 94 feet, and implementing physical contact within permissible limits. This comprehensive strategy represented a significant escalation from their previous meeting, where defensive pressure was less intense and physical contact more limited. Lan emerged as the most effective individual defender against Clark, utilizing her youth, athleticism, and international experience effectively. Born in 2004, Lan represents one of the youngest players receiving significant minutes in professional women's basketball, making her defensive success particularly noteworthy.
They played her full court and they played her physical. Whereas the last time these played, they had JC on her full court. They didn't play her physical. They did not play her physical. Caitlin was physically as imposing as JC Sheldon. But Layla Lacan, especially the age that she is, like, Layla Lacan is born in 2004. She's born in 2004. She is the youngest player in the league getting real minutes. She's born in 2004. If she was American, she would be going into her junior or her senior season of college.
The age disparity between Lan and other players highlights her exceptional development trajectory. At her current age, American players of similar birth year would typically be completing college careers rather than competing professionally against established stars like Clark. Rivers contributed aggressive full-court defensive pressure that complemented the overall strategy. Her defensive reputation and ability to create turnovers made her a valuable component of Connecticut's rotation designed to disrupt Indiana's offensive flow and rhythm. Early game observations suggested Clark was dealing with physical discomfort that affected her shooting accuracy and overall performance. Video analysis showed her addressing what appeared to be groin-related discomfort, though she continued playing through the apparent injury.
Season of college. She would possibly be going into her junior year of college. Like, what, I just want to see Hannah Hidalgo. So I think Hannah Hidalgo was 04, is she? No, she's February 2005. I'm trying to think what other sophomores there are. Is Madison Booker? Is she 04 or 05? No, she's 05. But there's definitely players that are born in that same year. They're going into their junior year of college, of high school. Like, she is 3 years younger.
Despite defensive pressure and physical limitations, Clark's fourth-quarter performance ultimately neutralized Connecticut's tactical advantages. Her late-game statistics included 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists in 28 minutes, projecting to potential triple-double numbers with extended playing time. Clark's early removal after 4.5 minutes in the first quarter potentially limited her statistical accumulation. Her quick start with 4 assists in the opening minutes suggested she was finding success against Connecticut's defensive schemes before coaching adjustments intervened. Turnover analysis revealed that most of Clark's mistakes resulted from legitimate defensive plays rather than unforced errors.
Years young or junior college. She's 3 years younger than Hailey Van Lith, and she full court pressed her. Sanaya Rivers full court pressed her. Sanaya Rivers is a dog on defense. Like, the fact that the Fever could have got her with 8, they wouldn't have taken her at 8, but they could have got her at 8, is pretty big as well. But I will say, Caitlin Clark was just missing. You could see early on in the game, she was struggling with something. Like, there are clips of her earlier on prior to her just taking over.
Lan, Rivers, and Nelson Adoda each contributed steals through active defensive positioning and anticipation rather than benefiting from poor decision-making. Connecticut's strategy acknowledged Clark as Indiana's primary offensive catalyst, with Charles publicly describing her as the head of the snake that required neutralization. This approach prioritized stopping one player over comprehensive team defense against all offensive threats. The defensive focus on Clark created opportunities for other Indiana players, particularly Mitchell and Howard, who faced reduced defensive attention throughout the contest. Connecticut appeared willing to accept offensive production from supporting players rather than allowing Clark to dominate possessions.
Something like, there are clips of her earlier on prior to her just taking over that she's grabbing her groin. Like, it's something that she did her tweak early in the game and just kept playing. But all I gotta say is that their tactic did not work late in the game. It didn't work late in the game. Caitlin Clark came into that game late on, and in 28 minutes, Caitlin Clark had 14, 7, and 8. Let's be real. If Caitlin Clark had played 35, she's probably getting a triple-double. And if it wasn't for the fact that Caitlin was hurt, and that Caitlin, while she...
Indiana effectively utilized Clark's gravitational effect to create scoring opportunities for teammates. The offensive scheme frequently involved Clark to Boston connections that generated high-percentage shots for Howard and others through secondary passing sequences and cutting actions. Howard's weak-side cutting proved particularly effective during this contest, representing perhaps her best performance in that specific role. Connecticut's focus on Clark and Boston created space for Howard to exploit defensive rotations and find favorable scoring positions. Connecticut's willingness to concede certain offensive opportunities reflected their strategic prioritization of limiting Clark's direct impact.
And that Caitlin, while she had 4 assists in 4 minutes, was taken off after 4.5 minutes of the first quarter. She was taken off right away after that. Like, she could have very easily had it. For the Caitlin's turnovers, I think 3 of them were just good defensive plays. I think LaCon had a good defensive play. Sanaya Rivers stripped her. Olivia Nelson-Ododa was a clean steal, but like, Caitlin was fouled about 4 times up to that point in the defense. And they just had a...
This calculated risk demonstrated sophisticated game planning that accepted some offensive production to prevent larger-scale dominance from Indiana's primary weapon. The final score of 85 points for Indiana and an 8-point margin represented reasonable outcomes for Connecticut's defensive strategy. Previous meetings between these teams had resulted in much larger margins, suggesting the tactical approach achieved some success despite the ultimate defeat. Coach Mazian's defensive schemes demonstrated creative use of limited offensive talent through strategic game planning. Connecticut lacks significant firepower beyond Charles and occasional contributions from Hartley and Land, making their competitive performance notable given talent disparities
in the defense. And they just had athletic bodies. Like, I talked about this in my pregame, that what the Indiana Fever had was, or what the Connecticut Sun had, was a lot of athletic bodies to throw at Caitlin Clark, and that's what they did. However, the problem with that is you heard Tina Charles. You heard Tina Charles coming out there and saying that we're trying to stop the head of the snake. That Caitlin's the head of the snake. We're stopping Caitlin.
The team's tactical intelligence became evident through constant defensive rotations and varied looks designed to disrupt Indiana's offensive rhythm. Mazian's approach maximized his roster's defensive capabilities while acknowledging offensive limitations that required strategic compensation. Connecticut's defensive success required preventing Clark and Boston from establishing dominance while accepting offensive production from other Indiana players. Any possession ending without Clark or Boston directly controlling offensive decisions represented tactical success for Connecticut's defensive scheme. Fourth quarter officiating changes significantly affected the strategic balance between the teams.
Caitlin Clark has been dealing with. She is in a shooting slump. She has not gotten her sea legs back on the court, at least not beyond the arc. And it just so happens that other three-point master of the WNBA, Sabrina Ionescu, is going through a bit of a shooting slump herself. Caitlin is shooting 28% from the three. Sabrina is shooting 30% from the three. Kelsey is shooting a pretty decent 35%. Alicia Gray is shooting almost 39%. And Sonia Citron is shooting an impressive
Earlier physical contact that went uncalled suddenly drew fouls, altering the competitive dynamics and undermining Connecticut's defensive strategy effectiveness. White's strategic timeout during a sequence of uncalled fouls on Clark proved crucial for shifting officiating emphasis. Following the timeout, similar contact patterns that previously went unpenalized began drawing foul calls that benefited Indiana's offensive execution. The officiating adjustment enabled Clark to reach the free throw line multiple times during crucial fourth quarter possessions. These opportunities, combined with improved shot selection, allowed her to overcome earlier struggles and assert late game dominance despite continued defensive pressure.
And Sonia Citron is shooting an impressive 36%, especially for a rookie. But the two biggest stars, the patented three-point shooters of the league, are both kind of down at the moment. And last year, Caitlin Clark did decline to take part in the three-point contest. She had gone straight from NCAA into the WNBA, and her legs were just worn out. But again, I'll reiterate, I think that there might be riots in the streets. I think that there would be a lot of backlash from haters and lovers, people who
Clark's fourth quarter takeover included successful three-point shooting, free throw conversion, and creative finishing around the basket. The combination of improved officiating and tactical adjustments by Indiana enabled her natural offensive abilities to overcome Connecticut's defensive strategy. The contrast between early game and late game officiating highlighted how referee decisions can influence tactical effectiveness. Connecticut's physical defensive approach worked within early game officiating standards but became problematic when officials began calling contact more strictly during crucial moments. Professional basketball strategy often involves choosing specific defensive priorities while accepting calculated risks in other areas.
Haters and lovers, people just want to see Caitlin Clark shooting. I personally think that it might not be the best year for her. Riddled with injuries and injuries in her legs, injuries in her quad, which are very important to get off for those three-pointers. Now, Sabrina shot 0%. I reiterate, 0% from beyond the arc against Atlanta after attempting 7. Actually, she went 3 for 20 in that entire game, so her shooting slump does not only
Connecticut's approach demonstrated this principle by focusing intensely on Clark, while allowing other players greater offensive freedom than typical defensive schemes would permit. The upcoming All-Star Weekend festivities generate significant anticipation, particularly regarding the three-point shooting competition. 5 participants have been selected for the contest, though notably, 2 of the most prominent contestants are experiencing accuracy difficulties. Additionally, roster changes have affected the All-Star Game lineup due to injury complications. The three-point contest field includes defending champion Alicia Gray, whose participation was expected given her previous success.
Her shooting slump does not only extend to the three-point line, it is also in the paint. And in the game previous to that, she shot 11% against the Aces. She sunk 1 three-pointer after attempting 9. And it looks like she went 9 for 23, so she wasn't horrible in the paint, but again, 1 for 9 is kind of wild. Wow, just looking at this, she was still somehow a plus 13 on the court, which ironically was the highest plus minus of the entire
Caitlin Clark's inclusion seemed inevitable, as excluding her would have generated substantial controversy among fans and media. Sabrina Ionescu brings her reputation as one of the league's premier long-range shooters. Kelsey Plum adds veteran experience and proven ability. Sonia Citron represents rookie talent and emerging shooting prowess. Current shooting percentages reveal interesting patterns among the contestants.
Plus minus of the entire team. Whoa. Anyway, so to me, I would put, if I were a betting man, I would put my money on Alicia Gray. Even though Alicia Gray's performance has also slowly declined, she is still, you know what? I actually might put my money on Sonia Citron. The young guns are kind of dominating this season. But yeah, I think Alicia Gray might take this one. You know, I'm hoping all the best for Caitlin Clark, but the reality of the situation is I personally don't think that
Clark is converting 28% of her three-point attempts, while Ionescu shoots 30% from beyond the arc. Plum maintains a respectable 35% accuracy rate. Gray leads the group with nearly 39% shooting. Citron demonstrates impressive 36% accuracy for a first-year player. The irony lies in the struggles of the two most celebrated long-range shooters.
of the situation is I personally don't think that she's at 100%. I think she is dealing and still coming back from the quad injury, if she's still not dealing with it now, that is. But who knows, Sabrina could come back. She could decide, I don't want to be in a slump anymore, and she could shoot the lights out. But just taking a look here at the three-point percentages in the league, just to see who else could have been there that has a higher shooting percentage, Kennedy Burke is shooting 47.9%. That is wild from the three. Tiffany Hayes is shooting 45.9%.
Clark and Ionescu, typically regarded as the league's premier three-point threats, both face significant shooting slumps entering the competition. This situation creates uncertainty about their contest performance despite their established reputations. Clark previously declined participation in last year's event, citing fatigue from transitioning directly from college to professional basketball. Her legs required rest after an exhausting NCAA tournament run followed immediately by WNBA play. This year's participation carries additional pressure given the expectations surrounding her involvement.
Tiffany Hayes is shooting 45.9%. Ooh, yeah. Monique Akoa Makani is shooting 43%. Lexi Hull is shooting 47%. Leonie Fibich is shooting 50%. Now, granted, I don't think she's taken many attempts. Tahina Pow is shooting 46, but she's coming off the bench, so she doesn't have as much high usage. A lot of these players might not be as high usage as the Sabrinas or Caitlins or Kelseys, so it makes sense that their percentage would be higher. Anyway, these are the
Physical concerns continue affecting Clark's performance. Ongoing leg and quadriceps injuries impact her shooting mechanics, particularly important for generating power on long-range attempts. These physical limitations may influence her contest preparation and execution during the actual event. Ionescu's recent performances highlight her current struggles. Against Atlanta, she failed to convert any three-point attempts, shooting 0% on 7 tries while finishing 3 of 20 overall.
Anyway, these are the stars of the league. These are the players that people want to see go up against each other beyond the arc. So I'm sure, you know, the All-Star game is meant to be fun, so I'm sure it will be. Next up, Kayla McBride has replaced Ryan Howard, who went down with injury in the Fever game for the All-Star reserves on Team Collier. Now, if you are not aware, Ryan Howard did go down the last time the Dream played the Fever, hyperextending her knee, so she's out with the knee injury now.
Her shooting difficulties extend beyond the three-point line, affecting her entire offensive game. In a previous contest against Las Vegas, Ionescu converted only 1 three-pointer in 9 attempts, representing 11% accuracy. Despite these struggles, she maintained a plus 13 rating, leading her team in that statistical category. This demonstrates her continued impact through other basketball aspects beyond shooting. Betting perspectives favor Gray based on her defending champion status and relatively stable shooting percentage.